Got a number of questions. Now, I'd like us to really do what we can to get through all these questions. So what I would suggest is that we should try to, try to get to the point with answering these questions. Now, what I also want to do is that there are three of them here that are directly related to what I shared this evening. So I'll just quickly run through those and answer them very quickly so that we can then go into the other ones that are a bit more nitty-gritty that I didn't talk about today. So the first one says, talking about opposites attracting, does it mean that as a single person, I should look out for my opposite permanently? Please shed more light. Whether you look out for your opposite or not, you will end up married to your opposite. That's the reality. So you don't have to look out for your opposite, but you need to understand who you are as a person, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, so that when somebody enters into your life, as your partner, you can also look at them and look where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are and how you both can complement each other. So you don't have to deliberately look out for an opposite, but the truth is this. You will tend to be married to your opposite at the end of the day. So it's not something you have to work at. So just, look for the values, and the goals and the heart for God and all the rest of that. And you will just find that you probably will end up to somebody that is completely different from you. So it's not something that you have to chase deliberately. The second one says, if the opposite attractions that attracted us to our spouses have the tendency to irritate us, do you advise that we learn to curb our natural traits in order to please our spouses? Or do you advise that we look for another spouse that is willing to accommodate any difference as a single lady? For example, one who talks too much is forced to talk less so as to please your spouse. Right, well, the practical answer to this is this. Anybody who was designed to be in your life will be able to handle who you are. Yeah? They'll be able to handle who you are, so they will celebrate your strengths, right? And they'll be able to overlook your weaknesses as well. So anybody who is trying to make you make you a version of yourself, or a different version of yourself, or someone who you are not, is not actually the person that God has assigned to your life. Because anyone that God has assigned to your life will accept you and celebrate you, for who you are. And, well, let me just say this. Well, when you do get married, there are some areas where you might, choose to adapt a little bit. So, like, for instance, I say to women, if your husband, tends to be someone that likes to go straight to the point, there are some areas or some things where try to go straight to the point. If it is not a matter of national importance. For instance, he asks you, what is the price of Junior's shoe? Don't start with history. Well, I went to this shop, and I went to the other one, and I did price comparison, and I went to 12 shops, and all that. All he wants to know is, what is the price of the shoes, so that I can buy the shoes. You understand what I'm saying? So that is not a matter of emotional, importance to you. It's not something, that is crucial to you as a woman. So, when it comes to things like that, before his eyes start to glaze over, try to keep to the point. That's what I'm saying. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there are times when you might want to talk because you want to unburden your heart, and at that point, that person should be able to accommodate you for who you are. I hope I've answered that question. And then lastly, it says, you said in your teaching, where your mind goes, your marriage goes. What is your advice to a single lady who has very little knowledge of how to be a wife? So submission, etc., as a result of being raised by a single father. Do you advise for her to get a beautiful home that she can understudy, possibly live with that family for a while so that she can have a changed mind to build a successful marriage? So essentially what this person is talking about, mentoring. Mentoring is actually a great way to learn, about marriage, because sometimes people don't have great role models in marriage. So because of that, they don't actually know how a good marriage should work. So it's great, actually, if there's someone around you in your environment whom you can learn from and whom you can understudy. But it may not always be possible. So like this person is saying, going to live with that, it might not always be possible. But there are great mentors out there, and you can learn from them by reading their books, by studying, what they've written, by reading the scriptures as well. When you pursue knowledge, you will find it. Somebody wisely said that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah. So when your heart is ready to receive knowledge, you will come across, information along the way. I mean, these things that I'm sharing with you today, I did not learn them because I was planning to teach them. For the first 10 years of my ministry, I did not talk about marriage at all. In fact, I met somebody recently who was like, how did you get into this whole marriage thing? Because they knew me way back then. I didn't used to teach about marriage. But all I was doing was studying for myself, because I'd made up my mind that I was going to have the kind of marriage that God had planned for me to have. So I would read and devour anything I could find, lay my hands on that was scriptural in the line of marriage. And I kept learning and developing myself. And then with time, God made of it a ministry. So what I'm saying is this: there are lots of other ways to learn as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, one-on-one. But if it's one-on-one, then absolutely great. Praise God.